Okay, in this video we're going to talk about variables and operators. Okay, so we talked about JavaScript being, I believe we used the word loosely typed before, but the textbook is now using the word untyped. So JavaScript is untyped. That means you can do something like this. You can declare a variable to be a string, and then just redeclare it to be a number, and it's no big deal. And another programming language is you'd have to go through a couple other in-between steps, or it would throw an error. Okay, there are about 4 ways to declare variables in JavaScript. You can just declare it. You can declare 2 variables with a comma in between. You can declare it and then set it equals to what you need, or you can declare it, set it equals, and then with commas do more variables. And whenever there are 2 here, you could do as many as you want. You can keep going. You could have 20 variables. There is another way to declare a variable, and that is just without the var. And we'll get into that. That makes it a global scope variable. So we have 2 scopes in JavaScript, global and local. So the difference is when you have a function. So here we have something outside of the function, before the function, and then we have stuff inside the function. Stuff inside the function, variables declared inside the function, are generally considered local scope. All variables declared in the top level code, that's code outside of the functions, are global in scope. Now there is one exception, and that's if you declare a variable inside a function without the var. You just say, greeting equals hello or something like that inside the function without saying var greeting equals hello. That variable would be a global variable. Okay, so let's talk about this. Global variables are accessible anywhere in your program. They can be accessible inside local variables, and this is an example of that. Here we declare greeting in the top level code, and then we alert greeting from within the function. Let's see if this works. And it does. It alerts hello. Now you need to be careful with global variables because you can change them from within the functions. So here we have our global variable, and then here we're saying, actually no, let's change greeting to hi, and then we're going to run the function and then run the alert in that order. When that happens, what do you think is going to get alerted? Hi gets alerted because we've overwritten the global variable from within the function. You could totally do that. Now, if we remove the first line, if we don't declare this in the global scope, and we just say greeting equals hi, it still is going to work because we're declaring greeting without the var. So we're just saying, hey, make this a global variable. Now, the other thing we need to know about declaring variables inside a function is if you have a global variable, and then if you redefine that global variable locally by using the var. So we have a greeting variable that says hi, and then we're saying in this function, no, let's make greeting hello. It'll essentially, so this is only a local variable, it has var, so this greeting is only going to affect what's inside the function. But when you do this, it essentially masks or hides the global variable as long as we're inside the function. So what gets alerted here? We're declaring our global variable, then we're declaring a local variable with the same name, which is going to hide the global variable, and then from inside the function we're going to alert it. So it's going to say hello. Okay. So now let's get on to some interesting weirdness in JavaScript. If you're familiar with other programming languages, this won't be new. But if you're not, this is a little odd. So we're talking about copying versus value versus copying versus reference. So primitives, that's numbers, booleans, and strings, copy by value. That's what you would expect. So if we say x equals 3, y equals x, and then we change x to 4, and then we alert y, what do we think y is going to be? Well, probably 3, right? Because we haven't messed with y. And that's correct. Now, that's only with primitives. Now with reference types, that's objects, arrays, it's a little different. So if we have x as an array of 1, 2, and 3, y is equal to x, and then we're saying change the first value in x to 100 instead of 1, and then alert y, what do you think is going to happen? So we alerted 100, 2, 3. So this is a little odd. If this were behaving like a primitive, we would expect it to alert 1, 2, and 3, because we've changed x, but we haven't. Well, we set y equal to x. So does that change it or not? Well, here's the deal. Objects they copy by reference. That means when we copy x into y, and x happens to be an object or an array, all that we're copying is a reference to this. So we're not actually creating a separate thing here. We're just copying a reference. So when we change the original, all references to the original will also change. So that's exactly what's happening here. So that's a little odd behavior if you weren't expecting that, so be careful of that. Okay, let's talk about operators real quick. So we've already done some stuff. You know, if we do like 1 plus 2, that's going to give us 3. Now if we're dealing with strings, plus is concatenation. That means putting them together. So if we say like hi plus Bob, that's going to give us like hi Bob, one big string. It concatenates the strings, it puts them together. So obviously we also have stuff, operators like minus. There's a multiplication operator, so 2 times 2 would be 4. There's a division operator, so like 2 divided by 2 would be 1. And this divides the second number. No, it divides the first number by the second, so this would be 1. Now, there's also a modulo operator. I think that's how you pronounce it. So this gives a remainder. So this is the same thing as division, but instead of giving us the division answer, it's giving us the remainder instead. So here, the 2 modulo 2 would be 0 because there's no remainder. Now, if we did sorry, I got confused for a second there. 1 modulo 3, for example, would have a remainder 1 because 1 goes into 3 0 times, and then you have 1 left over. So that's modulo. And then we have these increment and decrement operators. So they're the 2 increment, and they kind of do the same thing with a slight difference. And there's the same thing with decrement. So the increment, we'll just add 1 to this. So 1 increment and increment 1 would both be 2, and 1 decrement and decrement 1 would be 0. Now there's a slight difference, and that's how they return. So check this out. Okay. So let's see. If we set x is equal to 1, and then we do the post increment, and we alert post increment, and then we alert x after the post increment, what do you think is going to happen? So the first alert is 1. That's the surprising one. And then the second alert, did I do this right? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong file. Okay, so the first alert is 1, and the second alert is 2. So what's going on here is the post increment returns right away before it does the increment. So it'll give us the value before it was incremented. So and then it still increments the value. It just does it after it returns. So here's the value after it's increment, after it returns, after it's incremented. So if we switched around, we do like plus plus x, both of these will alert 2. 2, 2. Okay. So let's talk about equality and identity. So JavaScript has an equals equals operator and an equals 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 operator. The first one, equals equals, is equality. That just says, is this equal to this? So is 1 equal to 1? Of course. So we get true. Is 1 equal to 2? No. We're going to get false. Now this is an interesting one. Is the number 1 equal to the string 1? For equality, the answer is yes. Now let's talk about identity. Identity is almost like equality, except it tests not only if the value is the same, but if the type is the same. So is 1 equal to 1? Yes, in value, but are the types the same? No, this is a number and this is a string. So in identity, this will come up false. So identity is just like equals, but stricter. Okay, let's talk about comparison operators. JavaScript has less than, greater than, less than equals to, greater than equals to. So is 1 less than 2? Yes. True. Now, is 2 less than or equals to 2? Yes, because they're equals. Less than or equals. So that's less than or equals. JavaScript has and or operators. So the and is represented by and, ampersand, ampersand. So let's look at this. With x is 2, y is 3. Is x equal to 2? Yes. Is x less than 2? Is x less than y, excuse me? Is 2 less than 3? Yes. So because both sides of this ands are true, it's going to be true. So and is satisfied if the left and the right expressions are true. And because it's true, it's going to alert howdy because of the if statement. So that's what we get. Now, what about or? So here we have x is 2, y is 3. Is x equal to 2? Yes. Or is x greater than y? Is 2 greater than 3? Well, 2 is not greater than 3, but this is an or. So an or is satisfied if only one of the equations, if one of the expressions is true. So they don't both have to be true. If one of these is true, then it'll return true. And this says howdy, because this is true, even though this is false, because we're using or. Okay, that's it for this one.